We invite you to take a moment to silence your devices so as not to disturb the power of our time together this morning. Thank you. Welcome into this day with Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Whoever you are, wherever you're from, whomever you love, and whatever your faith tradition, you are welcome here. My name is Sigrid Cummings, and I'm a member here at QUUF, and I would like to begin this service by acknowledging that the water, the land, and the shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territories of the S'Klallam and Chimicum people. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain these homelands. As we call in our time together, let us settle our minds and calm our hearts with the ringing of our chime. It is good to be together. I'd like to welcome Al Thompson, who will lead us in our opening song, number 145, as Tranquil Streams. So please rise in body or spirit.
Tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea. Our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free. Free from the binds that bind the mind and narrow thought and
You guys sounded great, so that was fantastic. Thank you, Al, and good morning to everyone this Labor Day weekend. My name is Joseph Bednarik. My pronouns are he, him, and to visually describe myself, I am a tall man with a short white beard, short brown hair, and I wear glasses. That visual description is becoming more and more common in UU congregations, so that's sort of an intro of the future of the prophetic church. We light our chalice this morning with these words from Anne Frank. Look at how a single candle can both defy and define the darkness. And our opening words this morning from the great scholar of world mythology, Joseph Campbell. Your sacred space is where you can find yourself again and again. And the responsive reading this morning from Native American writer N. Scott Momaday. And just a note, we will all read the final line together. To encounter the sacred is to be alive at the deepest center of human existence. They stand for the earth immediately and forever. They are its flags and shields. at Devil's Tower or Canyon de Chelly or the Cahokia Mounds. You become one with a spirit that pervades geological time and space. Thank you very much.
We'd like to acknowledge and welcome those of you who are visiting us this morning. If you are online with us, you are invited to say hello in the comments section and tell us your name and where you're from. If you're attending in person, please rise or raise your hand so that we may welcome you. Have any visitors? Yeah. Welcome. We're glad you could join us. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to invite you to please join us for refreshments and conversation in the fellowship hall after this service. We have a newcomer table near the patio doors where our greeters are ready to answer any of your questions. And we welcome you all this morning, and we are very glad that you're here. We will now receive the offering. The offering today goes to support QUUF, our building, our hardworking staff, and all of our wonderful programs. If you'd like to donate to our programming, we have options. The ushers will come among those of you in person and receive the offering if you would like. You can also text the amount you'd like to give to the number that is showing on the screen if you're at home. You can go to our website, QUUF.org, and click on the giving link, or you can simply mail a check to QUUF, and please remember to put offering in the memo line. We gratefully receive your offering as we listen to Kristin Smith and Ryan Hoffman play The Butterfly. Oh, we have a correction. Ida Domaslicki and Ryan Hoffman. Thank you.
That was a beautiful song. Thank you. We have one announcement this morning, a very special announcement from Diana Haas.
Good morning. September 10th, next Sunday, is an extra special day because Linda Hart will be delivering her first service. And we're having the sensational, intergenerational chili potluck picnic. And it's going to be a honey of a time. Here's more buzz. It's not just a picnic. We'll also have games, crafts, a sing-along, and unbelievable 12-foot-long ice cream sundae bar. This is an organized potluck, so sign up for chili, cornbread, mac and cheese, or a salad. There will be vegan, gluten-free, and dairy-free options. It's a potluck, so we're asking people to bring specific contributions. There are many options for cooks and non-cooks alike. We're especially looking forward for people to bring chili for 10. Cooks, can you spread your wings and make chili for 10? We need volunteers. Also, for other items, please sign up on the bulletin board by the office, or you can email me, Diane Haas. The lists of items needed is in the weekly update that came out on Friday in case you're online. Finally, Shakespeare wrote, "To be or not to be." Paul McCarthy wrote, "Let it be." But my Aunt Beatrice, or Aunt B, as we like to call her, gave me a gift when she shared these words of wisdom with me. Being together is important. I hope you can be there. Thank you.
Let's be so glad that announcement didn't drone on. She started it. Oh my. We share our joys and sorrows, recognizing that our personal joys and sorrows are only a fragment of the joys and sorrows of the larger community of life. And thus, we place this first stone, thinking in particular of those who are suffering around the world from major weather events caused by climate change. And within this congregation, I'm sure there are thousands upon thousands of joys and sorrows, and even so, we didn't receive any specific ones for broadcast for this Sunday morning. So let's take 20 deep and meaningful seconds and sort of think about our own personal joys and sorrows before we place this last candle. And we place this last candle holding in our hearts the joys and the sorrows that we've shared with ourselves, and also thinking of the joys and sorrows of all those within this sacred space. Now I invite you into a time of silent meditation. The reading this morning is a poem entitled Variation on a Theme by Rilke. It's written by Denise Levertov. She was a poet, American poet, lived in Seattle, originally from England, lived in the Seattle area, and as she aged, she became more and more interested in religious topics. A certain day became a presence to me. There it was, confronting me, the sky, air, light, a being. And before it started to descend from the height of noon, it leaned over and struck my shoulder as if with that flat of a sword, granting me honor and a task. The day's blow rang out metallic. Or it was I. A bell awakened, and what I heard was my whole self saying and singing what it knew. I can. Our special music today is Waltz of the Little Girls, performed by Joyful Noise. You know what? Somehow that silent applause didn't sound right. Do you mind giving that? Joyful noise indeed. Wow. Thank you. Time and space. It was a gorgeous way to begin a talk on a Sunday morning, because those two words have fired the imagination of scientists and mystics since the dawn of science and mysticism. Now we're going to perform a little linguistic magic trick and make time and space even more fascinating and more interesting with the addition of an adjective. Sacred. Sacred time and sacred space. Now, the appreciation, cultivation, and creation of sacred time and sacred space are their core religious practices across cultures. For a simple definition of the sacred, consider this short excerpt from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Quote, "The term sacred comes from Latin sacer, to set off or restricted. A person or a thing was designated as sacred when it was unique or extraordinary." And I love that word, extraordinary, extraordinary, outside the ordinary. And as the article continues, it introduces the basic, quote, dichotomy of sacred, profane, and goes on to discuss related dichotomies such as pure and unpure, pointing out that, quote, to acquire purity means to enter the sacred realm, which could be done through purification rituals or through the fasting, continence, and meditation of ascetic life. When a person became pure, they entered the realm of the divine and left the profane, impure, decaying world. Now, such a transition was often marked by a ritual act of rebirth, close quote. Now, that short excerpt just points directly at why I find religious practice so utterly fascinating. That human dance between and within dichotomies, such as sacred and profane, using rituals of purification and rebirth, with an awareness, of course, of the most profound dichotomy, life, death. Now, I have a hunch that this sort of sacred profane talk in Unitarian Universalist congregations is usually kept at arm's length. We can intellectually appreciate the concept that we rarely, if ever, engage in ritual behaviors designed to transport us viscerally and completely into the realm of the divine. Perhaps you have been witness to the emotional and spiritual intensity of a worship service where people are called forth to an altar to give their hearts over to Jesus and be baptized in the Spirit, to be born again. I've been witness to these sorts of services. And I've never felt that kind of intensity in a Unitarian Universalist worship service where even the word worship is frowned upon by some UUs in a sacred setting. And I get it. I totally get it. We live in an age of science, correct? And technological innovations, we're really smart. We know what the human brain and human psychology is all about. We know infinitely more than when Christ suffered and died on the cross and the Buddha became enlightened under the Bodhi tree. And frankly, we have come to expect the many gifts and wonders of our ingenuity and our technological advances. Indoor plumbing, refrigeration, and online shopping, to name three. So in a conversation with someone recently, they pondered whether human consciousness was simply a result of chemicals sloshing around in the brain. Now, rest assured, the Buddha never had that thought. Now, chemical realities notwithstanding, I feel, personally, a hunger for the sacred. And I've traveled to sacred places, and I even try every Sunday to co-create a sacred place in rooms like this one, where we get to create sanctuary. So years ago in a sermon about religion, I had the great good fortune of listening to a UU minister describe a custom in India of drawing red circles around objects. How when you draw a red circle around an object, that object becomes essentially an occasion for meditation, a meditation on the mystery and the wonder of that object's being. That object becomes holy. It's like, what a gorgeous way to focus the world. And that's why I always keep a red grease pencil with me at all times when I come to church on Sundays. And let's for a moment consider sacred places as all-encompassing, so that when a person is present within, mystery and wonder abound. And so with my red grease pencil, we get to imagine, if I can pull it out, because it's an old military pencil, swords into plowshares, as it were. Holy Moses. Now you get to see what's in my pockets. Okay. A little book called The Greatest Thing in the World, notebook, picture of my kids, a UU card. There's a red pencil in here somewhere. It was in the other pocket. The things that can happen, right? Oh, I pulled off my tie clip. Wow. All right, there we go. So with this red grease pencil, let us all use our imaginations. I'm going to draw a red circle around this sanctuary, as is the custom. Do you feel it? I hope so. And we all likely have our stories of encountering and entering sacred places. And I'm reminded of discovering this miraculous place within the United Nations building in New York City called the Meditation Room. Some of you might recall that a few years ago I gave an entire sermon on this place. The Meditation Room is relatively small, benches, there's an abstract mural, and astonishingly a 6-ton block of black iron ore. And it's lit from above by this very slender beam of light. So in a city of 8 million people, I found myself alone in this glorious room, alone in a room called the Meditation Room inside a building called the United Nations in the world's Alpha City. I sat and I watched the iron ore and the light on top of the ore. And then I stood and I approached the iron and I held my hand above its surface so that my hand was lit by that slender beam. And the shadow of my hand was cast upon this black surface. And so you have the weightless black shadow of a human hand atop 6 tons of black iron ore. And there was a single heart beating within the dichotomies of light and dark. Massive, weightless, noisy, bustling city, quiet meditation room. And I stood in that room and tears rose. And upon exiting, I wondered where the line of pilgrims was, the line stretching the length of Manhattan, searchers longing to be within what the sacred meditation room had, 6 tons of black iron and a slender beam of light. Now, Dag Hammarskjöld, the Secretary General of the UN at the time, who designed the meditation room, wrote, quote, "We all have within us a center of stillness surrounded by silence. This house," by which he meant the UN, "this house, dedicated to work and debate in the service of peace, should have one room dedicated to silence in the outward sense and stillness in the inner sense." I bow to that sacred space. And I also bow to Walden Pond, another sacred place. Thoreau's literary masterpiece, Walden, was the central text of my young adulthood. I carried the book everywhere. It was a beat-up mass-market paperback, broken spine, dog-eared pages, little notes in the margins. I organized reading groups about the book, its ideas. I wrote my college thesis on Walden, and I took this quote from Thoreau very deep into my heart. Quote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and to see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." So when a friend and I were visiting Boston, we planned this side trip to the actual pond and the site of Thoreau's cabin. I was eager, buoyant, to finally see this place in 3 dimensions. But when I stepped out of the car in the parking lot, the sunlight glinting off 1,000 other cars hurt my eyes and my heart just tightened. "Let's go," I told my friend. "Walden isn't here anymore." Now, as rash and half-cocked as that statement sounds, I totally get what my younger self was driving at. While Walden Pond is an actual site, it's an actual sacred site visited by millions, millions of scholars and searchers, poets and visionaries, travelers and tourists, it has become a sacred site for me, located within. It's not without me anymore. I don't need to see it. And that parking lot decision on that bright sunny day was over 30 years ago, and since then I have never felt the urge to return to that specific body of water, though I have searched, sometimes intensely, for other sacred waters. And as is my way with composing talks, during the process of creating this one, I asked a number of people about their relationship with sacred spaces, whether they have any sacred places in their life. And one woman I talked with said, and I quote, "Every place on earth is sacred." To which I responded, "Even a strip mall in suburban Kentucky?" Offering some specificity to the grand general statement, revealing yet another dichotomy. Every place, this place. Now, I think we could, in 5 quick minutes, brainstorm a list of 100, perhaps 200 places not easily labeled as sacred, from a nuclear waste dump to a weedy gravel patch along the side of the highway. And yet, within a few miles of this sanctuary, there are at least 2 very specific weedy patches along 2 separate highways where small memorials have been constructed and they are tended. And these memorials are places where someone died in an automobile wreck. And many of you coming to church this morning passed one or both of those sites on your way here. Now, there are some people who visit these sites regularly to remember and to honor their loved ones. These places, they have very specific GPS coordinates where a beloved left the earth, breathed their last, spilled their red blood. And these weedy patches, they are profoundly sacred to at least one other person on the planet, and yet they're passed by high speeds by everyone else. And that's one of the functions, I believe, of sacred space. They allow us to metaphorically tap the brakes, slow to a stop, get out of whatever vehicle is hurtling us through space and kneel here to meditate on the mystery and wonder of this place's being and to feel something extraordinary, extraordinary, out of the ordinary, sacred. And we quickly arrived at this specific weedy patch because a woman I was talking to suggested that every place on earth is sacred. Now, perhaps this woman, a stranger who I met at a cocktail party, is actually a mystic who sees in her mind's eye a red circle around the entire planet. And in this time of drastic change and climate change and the stress that the earth itself is feeling, let's do a little visualization experiment in our sacred place. Let's practice, let's try to embrace our inner mystic. And I invite you to close your eyes and imagine our beautiful blue planet with its thin and fragile atmosphere revolving in space. Now imagine drawing a vast red circle around our earth, remembering the practice that when you draw a red circle around an object, that object becomes an occasion for meditation, a meditation on the mystery and the wonder of that object's being. That object becomes holy. And as we draw that imaginary red circle around the earth, the 7th and concluding principle of Unitarian Universalism reveals itself most vividly: respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. You're welcome to open your eyes if you haven't already. And to close this morning, I invite you that sometime in the next week to please visit or create a sacred place, or take a red grease pencil and draw a circle around something to meditate on the mystery and wonder of that object's being. If you have an altar at home, I invite you to spend some time with your altar, and go beyond that 59th second. Go into the second minute and the third minute and the fifth minute. Just hang with your altar. If you don't have an altar at home, consider making one. Because making an altar is this really fun exercise, which we performed during the Coming of Age program here at Quimper UU Fellowship earlier this year. If you weren't here, to catch everybody up, Coming of Age is a mentoring program where older members of the congregation are paired with a younger teenager, and together they participate in a number of activities and exercises over a period of time to get to know each other, to also think and feel more deeply about religious and spiritual topics, and for the young people to compose credo statements, what they believe at this point in their life. It was a very powerful service in May when our young people shared their credo statements. And I took part in that program this year, and one exercise that we had to do as part of the program was to create an altar in your home or outside. And then, of course, the altar was used to learn more about each other when we were given these interview questions, these prompts, including this question: what items are on your altar? But listen to this key follow-up question. Why? Why, Joseph, do you have a bronzed everything bagel on your altar? I brought it for show and tell. We were then asked to take a photograph of our altar and send it to our Director of Religious Education, our beloved Bo. Now, as part of that Coming of Age service in May, where all the young people shared their credo statements, for those of you who are here, you'll recall. For those of you who aren't, please imagine this sacred place was lined with photographs of altars, over 24 altars. Now, you talk about a red circle, right? And the congregation was invited to look at the photos to see what these sacred spaces looked like, what items were on the altar, and to marvel. And every altar, of course, every altar is a red circle. And each altar was extraordinary. The artists' altars were artsy. The nature lovers' altars were natural. And the most memorable one for me was also, interestingly, the most mundane, was a basketball hoop in the driveway. Now, the young person who shared this altar loves playing sports, loves shooting hoops. And when they're goofing around, playing one-on-one with their dad, there is no place on this sacred earth where they would rather be. The basketball hoop, of course, was red. Amen. Our closing song this morning is When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, number 1008 in the teal hymnal, and will also be broadcast up there.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place. with love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the calm of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power in each other's face, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Our closing words this morning, a beautiful little poem by Antonio Machado. Beyond living and dreaming, what matters most is waking up. Now we extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, or the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we're together again. My apologies for jumping the gun on that one. Next week is the first Sunday of the church year, and we invite you all to come and listen to the first sermon that's going to roll itself out. Our postlude this morning is by Joyful Noise. Enjoy.